Hey everyone, Fortinet recently reported its financial results, and the cybersecurity industry overall has been a really interesting one in 2024. Of course, with the biggest news coming with the big failure of CrowdStrike and the massive outage it caused, I was curious how Fortinet would be impacted by those outages. Would Fortinet attract a lot more customers as a result of that? Would Fortinet add new products or try and add a new incentive, a new program to try and capture those customers that are now extremely upset with CrowdStrike? So this is going to be really interesting how the cybersecurity industry develops throughout this year as a result of that big item. But remember, even before that, Palo Alto Networks initiated a massive market share capturing strategy that was also impacting the industry that I was talking about earlier in 2024. So we've had a lot happening in the cybersecurity industry. Fortinet has been one of my favorite cybersecurity stocks. It's out of all, the ones I talked about, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto Networks, etc. Fortinet had been the top one out of those three and others. And so I wanted to review this quarter's results and see if Palo Alto Networks or Fortinet is going to benefit at the expense of CrowdStrike. So let's take a look here. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now. So just to provide an overview of what Fortinet offers to its customers in terms of cybersecurity products, you can see they have so many products here listed. They have unified SACE, they have AI-driven security operations, and they have security networking, which includes firewall, switch, 5G, and then they have virtual machine, cloud native, and they have more even that they haven't listed here. So they're a full suite of solutions for their customers. Several of the things that you might need for cybersecurity, Fortinet offers you. And that's helpful for enterprises because they could go to one company for a lot of these things instead of having to have several different vendors for each of these unique things that they are looking for. And that consolidation helps because enterprises are really getting exhausted with all the different vendors they need for all the different services they need to run a business. So whenever you can consolidate and have one vendor for several solutions, you try to do that. As long as the service quality is up to par, you can go ahead and do that and not have to go with the individual purchases of different solutions. So speaking about Fortinet and its several different offerings it has in the marketplace, it is a leader in network firewall, a leader in SD-WAN, a leader in wired and WLAN, and then a challenger for single vendor SACE and security service edge. So it's not a leader for each one of the products that it offers, but it is a leader in three important categories. And overall, it's a challenger for many others. It's one of the larger cybersecurity companies worldwide, and it doesn't need to be a leader in each one of those categories, but it does benefit Fortinet to have those, because if it adds a customer for, let's say, network firewall, then the incremental cost to Fortinet to have that customer that wants its network and firewall to also add one more module is low. And so if you can get that customer who wants you for one of your leadership services, and if you can get that customer to add a second or third service, that adds significantly to your bottom line. So getting to the financials, billings, which is an important metric I've been watching with Fortinet, it was flat in the latest quarter, came in at 1.541 billion, and that was the same as the second quarter last year at 1.541 billion. But you'll notice that the growth rates have decreased substantially, and it was negative in the first quarter of 2024, negative 6.4%. So it's encouraging that it turned upward and it was flat in the current quarter, so that we didn't see a continued decline here in this metric. Of course, billings eventually turn into revenue, so this is an important metric for Fortinet stock investors to look ahead and see what the company is expecting going forward. Now, I highlighted that I've had Fortinet stock rated as a buy, and I last updated that recommendation on May 29th. But actually, if you've been following my channel all year long, you will remember that I had Fortinet as one of my top stocks to buy. So I had it rated even higher to start the year, but I downgraded Fortinet stock to a buy because of two things I noticed to begin the year. One of them was that strategy I highlighted with Palo Alto Networks. I saw that as a risk to the industry. And the second thing was the billings deceleration, that metric I just shared with you earlier, where you saw that going downward. So I saw that as two risks that were a little too much for Fortinet to qualify as a top stock to buy, but I kept it rated as a buy because I still like the company's risk versus reward at its current valuations. Moving on, looking at the company's operating income, which came in at $503.6 million in the second quarter of 2024, and that was up from $348 million in the same quarter last year. The operating profit margin also increased meaningfully up to 35.1%, the highest operating profit margin Fortinet has delivered going back all the way to the second quarter of 2022. So you saw a nice increase in the company's profitability in the latest quarter. Looking ahead to the guidance for the third quarter, Fortinet is forecasting year-over-year growth in billings of 4.9%. 4.9%. And that's great news for Fortinet stock investors because you notice that billings growth were heading downward. They were negative in the previous quarter. They were flat in the current quarter. And now Fortinet expects it to be up 5% in the next quarter. So you are seeing Fortinet's billings growth recover, and that's great news because this eventually turns into revenue. Fortinet is also forecasting operating profit margins to remain above 30%, 31% to be precise at the midpoint is what they are forecasting for operating profitability in the next quarter. So I like the forecast from Fortinet. It looks like they are reaccelerating growth, and it's hard to tell. I didn't see the data yet. I need to digest more of the company's latest results, as well as going through the latest quarterly conference call to determine and see if they did benefit from the fallout of CrowdStrike's disaster. So I highlighted that Fortinet's stock price jumped following this earnings release, and that's understandable, jumping from $55 per share to $69 per share because it was a good quarter. It returned to growth. It's expecting a return to growth in the billings metric, and its operating profitability margins are rising. So great news on those fronts. Fortinet is trading at a forward price to earnings of 31, which I think is still a reasonable valuation for this excellent growth stock in an ever-expanding industry with now stronger competitive advantages because it's going to benefit from the fallout of CrowdStrike. So overall, I'm keeping Fortinet stock rated as a buy, and I will continue to update you as developments come in this ever-interesting cybersecurity industry. Before I let you go, let me tell you about the greatest deal on YouTube. With just a click of a button, you can get free financial analysis from a professor with decades of investing experience. So what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.